You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
I gotta drink 2 liters and I add salt to it, right? So it, of course, makes me worse.
You
makes
put
it worse.
salt in chocolate milk?
Yeah, man. A couple dashes of salt, stir it up. Oh, look out.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
and Brazilian Ty
Hunters are people, too.
talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Brazilian Ty. This week, Canada put out the new food guide. Are you going to follow it?
Let's see. For supper, I had 2 veal cutlets, rice, potatoes, and a piece of chocolate cake. And I'm going to have 2 chocolate chunk cookies and a chocolate chip brownie. So, yes?
Well, you know what? I didn't think you were actually too bad up until the supper. Or the dessert, I mean.
Well, I mean, the chocolate cake was part of supper. Like, I ate it at the table.
So let me think here. They want us to cut down on meat and dairy.
Nope. Yeah, I can do that. But there's no way I'm cutting down on meat.
Oh, so you can cut down on the dairy, but not the meat.
Yeah, milk is gross anyway. And ice cream makes me sick, so I don't eat a lot of it.
So if I
So it's
just
not a big
have
deal.
a big old steak and half a block of cheese, that's not good.
Can you melt that cheese over some potatoes?
Oh,
That would be deadly.
now we're talking. So are you the old lactose intolerant, or?
Well, everybody's a little lactose intolerant.
Yeah,
It's the people, yeah, right. So I just think, like, when I drink chocolate milk, I don't just drink a little bit.
You drink like 4 liters of it.
I gotta drink 2 liters and I add salt to it, right? So it, of course, makes me worse.
You
makes
put
it worse.
salt in chocolate milk?
Yeah, man. A couple dashes of salt, stir it up. Oh, look out.
Are you serious?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
It is delicious.
So yeah, everybody does have the different lactose line. Like, if you go to the DQ, and I know that
I get a large every time. It doesn't matter.
the Blizzards, you get the large.
And I regret it almost instantly.
Now, I don't get sick after a large. Well, I feel questionable. But
What is this, an NFL injury report?
I go for the jumbo. Have you heard of the jumbo?
No, but I'm intrigued.
Well, a large Blizzard is the size of like a medium pop, right?
Sure.
The
I don't get
jumbo
Papa
Blizzard
DQ.
is the size of a large pop.
Oh man, I would vomit after it, but it would be so worth it.
Now, what flavor do you go for?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
And we agree on one thing.
Just nothing but dairy and sugar.
I love when all the chunks of cookie dough get to the bottom.
To the bottom. Oh man.
In the Huddle with Currah and Ty on the 2 and Out podcast.
I actually got a free coupon for a medium Blizzard on my desk, so I think that's exactly where I am going to go after this show.
Before we get too far, while we're still talking about food, that delicacy that you gave your coworker, was that actually what you told him it was?
No, it was not that delicate. It was not dog meat.
Because that would have been even better.
It's actually a candy called tamarind, and what Ty is referring to, I work at a radio station in Red Deer, Z98.9, and there's been an ongoing bit where they tell me there are, Tim Hortons donuts or whatever
It's the best.
in the lunchroom, and every time I get in there, there's an empty box, and it's just terrible. So, one of our coworkers here, he got back from the Philippines. He went there for about a month-long holiday, and he came back with a ton of candy. And one of them, I'm looking this up, it's called tamarind. Actually, it's a tree there, and I don't know. They kind of bottle it up or turn it into sort of like a ball and then put sugar on it and pass it off as candy. But everyone that tries it is just disgusted by it. So I got my boss into trying it, and I told him it was dog meat.
After he ate it.
Oh, that was a ton of fun. So it was good to get them back finally, because I'm the gullible one. In every single situation, I'm the one that can easily be tricked.
Well, but you willingly ate the apples for like your guys' apple taste test, which I was in shock watching that. I couldn't turn it off. It was like
Do
a
you
bad
hate
car wreck.
apples?
No, I only like one kind of apple.
What kind?
Granny Smith. Or crab apples, whichever ones, but Granny Smith are the only way to go.
Wow. The Spartan is the one that grossed me out.
I don't like red apples. They're too bitter.
Somehow we're
just
going
like
to talk
me.
about football. This is what happens in January.
Yeah, I mean, I am in camp in the middle of nowhere, so, there's nothing but food here at my fingertips for free no matter where I go in camp, so it's kind of hard not to think about it.
Man, that does not sound bad, like at all.
Until you try to connect to the internet.
Oh, the internet's not good.
It's not great.
It's 2019, man. What's going on?
Well, here we are.
So let's go back. I'm going to try and go in chronological order and kind of split the news up into teams here as well. But the LFA Combine was about a week and a half ago. And then it seemed like all of a sudden that weekend, people were crapping all over the idea. And now there's kind of rumblings that Ambrosi wants to get into Germany. Another country that I guess plays some American football. There was the NFL Europe, I guess, experiment,
which was awesome.
We can call that went on. So you have to assume that some players in Europe became fans of the game and started playing it. But what's your take on this? I see nothing bad out of it. I mean, the word was that about a half a dozen players could come and they could go to camp and they would not be out of place. But is that really any different than any draft?
No, and, the ton of negativity, as it was going on, not a huge surprise to me. Just if there is something that I don't want to paint all CFL fans with the same brush, but it seems that anytime there's something to crap on, there is people that just take that opportunity and do it.
Well, you're right. They can't
matter.
please everybody. It's
right?
crazy.
It's insane. But like you said, there were 6 guys there. They said about half a dozen that could go to camp and not look at a place. Another handful of guys that would have would be a little above their grade, but everybody else just they weren't the talent they were looking for. But what harm are they causing by holding this? Zero. You're getting exposure. You might find a new player or two. If all 6 of these guys end up making camp or breaking camp and making the team, so what? I do think that with adding to the player pool that maybe the ratio needs to be looked at or the roster sizes, because you're adding more players and they're the same amount of jobs. But other than that, I see nothing wrong with what went on.
That was part of the thing that was driving me a bit crazy, because people are saying we need to showcase our Canadian players more and all this stuff. Well, the ratio hasn't changed. There is still that part of the game, so Canadians are still getting opportunities to play in the CFL.
Starting to sound like South Park. They took our jobs. Nobody's taking your job.
But then there has been arguments from people wishing that maybe the ratio would be reduced a little bit to up the level of competition there. So, I mean, pleasing everybody is nearly impossible, but I think everybody knows that the ultimate goal here is to maybe get a TV deal in Mexico. They broadcast the Grey Cup in Spanish for the first time this past November, so I think they're starting a new business relationship there, and Ambrosie's just trying to find new ways to bring in new revenue to the Canadian Football League. And
with with more revenue, more exposure, that means the cap can go up, which means the players make more. There's nothing negative that can come from this.
I know everybody is kind of hoping that they'd get to work on the CBA, but it's kind of political on both sides of it with the PA and the league. So we'll see what happens there. And speaking of TV deals, the league ended up signing a multi-year agreement with ESPN. So they're going to have 20 games, I guess, on the main network, and then the others on ESPN Plus, so that'll be online. But basically, it looks like every game is going to be available live to viewers in the U.S., and that's huge.
That is huge. The league obviously makes money. They're not going to sell their rights for nothing. And viewership in the U.S. last year was up 19% versus the numbers in 2017. So people are watching. I know everybody, the NFL is king, and it's hard to argue when you get 70,000 people to a game, and no matter what happens in the final seconds on blown calls or whatever, people still watch. Even if it costs you $1,600 and you have to sit in camp and watch yourself get screwed out of money. But, it's more exposure. Again, like Ambrosie has been, if nothing for this league, has done whatever he can to expose this league to more eyeball and get the name out there and get the product out. And, maybe it's not, we're not talking millions of viewers. Like, they're averaging 163,000. But that's not, it's not like it's a bad thing. I see nothing wrong with this. This is great. The more revenue I just said this before, the more revenue the league can make, and split up between the teams, that's better for the league.
What blew my mind about some of those calls in the AFC and NFC championship games was that everybody was talking
CFL
about...
The CFL refs are so bad.
They were talking about the CFL being able to challenge pass interference, but during the season, people complain about it.
Yeah.
So you can't brag about it and then complain about it.
No, it's Do
you think the NFL will ever put that in?
Absolutely, they will. I think there's going to be a couple. I don't know if it'll happen right away, but there is 2 changes that are going to be talked about at their competition meeting. It's going to be changing the overtime and looking at reviewable plays, because the league this was the Patriots' 8th trip to the AFC Championship game. Goodell hates the Patriots. It's well documented. He's going to want to change some stuff.
Yeah. Tom Brady, 9 Super Bowl appearances, and the next closest team has 8. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's the Steelers, not a big deal. That's why I'm cheering for the Rams, because I don't want Brady to have as many Super Bowls. And the head coach for the Saints, who got screwed in the NFC Championship game, is on the competition committee. So, something works in one league, and we saw it didn't really work when it first came in with the illegal contact and all that stuff and guys fishing. So they fixed that, and they don't have to add challenges. If they keep the challenges the same number of challenges, and just expand the plays that can be challenged, I think they'll be handled well, and they've seen how it can work in the CFL, and they can maybe adapt it to the NFL game as well.
Let's see. Let's go through some of the player transactions over the last little bit.
Are you gonna be able to get through this first one? Or
no,
do I have to do it? Do I have to take over?
Canada's biggest Drew Willie fan.
Are you okay?
So seeing him cut by the Montreal Alouettes is pure sadness. And one team that does not have a quarterback right now.
Don't you dare.
Drew Willie makes his triumphant return to Regina.
Oh, I was thinking maybe Calgary would sign him because Bo's not coming back.
and leads the Riders. Actually, watch Willie go to Calgary and just light it up.
Oh. I think this episode's over. Would you get a Stamps jersey if that was the case?
Well, I don't have a Drew Willie jersey at all.
Well, you're gonna have to get one now.
I would accept a gift.
I don't love you that much.
I mean, the new suppliers are going to come in, new era. Maybe the Adidas stuff is going to go on deep discount. And they got an opportunity to get a Drew Willie jersey there.
I like your thinking.
Veteran receiver Ernest Jackson ends up signing a 1-year extension in Montreal. Last year was not good for Ernest Jackson, and I think he wanted to kind of avoid free agency, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, I don't see... It wasn't great, and granted, their quarterback situation was awful.
Yeah,
until Johnny Manziel kind of got into the groove and figured out what he was doing. But yeah, Ernest Jackson has a name in this league. I think that somebody would have signed him. I don't think he would have got the money or he wouldn't be on your higher echelon, but he's still serviceable. I think him staying in Montreal kind of, a little bit more continuity. We know that team in the last couple of years has not been the flagship franchise by any means for the CFL. And, Manziel having a guy that he's familiar with in the system can't hurt either.
Nolan McMillan, offensive lineman for the Ottawa Redblacks, has re-upped for 1 year. That's pretty cool. He was actually the first draft pick ever for the Red Blacks in 2013, and he is staying put in Ottawa. Well, let's go to Toronto here, where they signed Ryan Bombin to a 3-year deal. He kind of bounced around a little bit last year, but now he's found a home in Toronto, and that's a big step to keeping a consistency there on the offensive line.
And that's where games are won, is the trenches, the battle between the offensive and defensive line. This guy's been an all-star, and for somehow Montreal decided to trade him. I never really understood that, other than the fact they didn't want to pay him in February. But yeah, it just it gives him flexibility with the ratio, and its consistency on that offensive line, which with a young quarterback, whether it's McLeod Bethel-Thompson or James Franklin, is going to be a good thing for those guys.
Let's go to Winnipeg. Hamilton first. We'll mention that they re-upped Sean Thomas Erlington and Rashad Lawrence, but Winnipeg was especially busy during these past couple weeks. We'll start with Stanley Bryant. They locked him up for another year. Back-to-back offensive lineman of the year, so it's good to have him in Winnipeg. Jackson Jeffcoat stays in Winnipeg for another 2 years. Ian Wild actually gets released. Anthony Gator signs through 2020. He wasn't going to be a free agent this February, but they wanted to make sure they had a contract in place. But the big one, and it was mentioned last week when we did the episode on Chris Jones, is the Bombers being able to re-sign Adam Bighill. And I think the biggest thing here is, well, first of all, the tenure. They get him for 3 years, and that's pretty rare to see in the Canadian Football League. But they were able to offer him something that I think, I don't know if every CFL city can do. They basically were able to offer him a career post-football as well.
Yeah, that's not a bad gig. If you can have your life set up post football, because you never know when your football career is going to end with the chance of injury and non-guaranteed contracts. But he's going to be set up basically for the rest of his life now, and him and his family they're laying down roots in Winnipeg, and they want to stay there. So it's great for the team and great for the city.
Yeah, it was probably going to be a big battle with BC. Well, you'd think at least Lions fans would want Bighill to get back here, but the Bombers were willing to pay big money to keep Bighill there, and we'll see how that affects the defense, I guess, in the next few years here, because Ian Wild wasn't the player he was since he came back from the NFL. He was mostly doing special teams things last season, but Chris Randall ends up getting let go, so they had to make some sacrifices to keep Bighill there. And the big thing there is the post-football career. And that's what a lot of people say that the Riders are able to offer. And not maybe even directly through the team, because it's just the way the province works. So some people are saying...
like Matt Dominguez is selling houses. Are you not going to buy a house from Matt Dominguez?
Exactly,
if you have the chance
or buy a car
fan?
from Don Narcisse, whatever. These guys are able to stay in the province and make a life for themselves after football. Some are wondering if this is intriguing for a guy like Mike Riley.
I don't see how it wouldn't be. You have that chance to have financial stability and even just personal stability of having a place to work and a place that you can call home. Whether or not it really comes down to whether or not guys want to stay in Canada and in their communities, and it all depends on. I think a big thing of it is how they're treated while they're there, and. We've seen a number of players love being up here, and guys end up staying year round during their career. And guys like George Reed that are still in Regina, it's just one of those things that if you can get a guy that likes being here and offer him these opportunities, and he wants to stay, it just makes. I'm not saying that it's a chance, but it might save you money salary wise, because he knows he's got something coming that he doesn't have to make it big. Now and maybe looking down the road, it helps cap wise, and he can look at it and be like, well, if I can take a little less now, I'll make it back later, and we can build a winner.
And on that note, if a guy wants to stay somewhere, I think it's safe to assume that they will sign there, CBA or not. So I think that kind of makes it fishy as to why a guy like Riley hasn't signed yet. I kind of get it with Bo, because he's got the NFL knocking at his door. Trevor Harris might want to play the free agent market a little bit, but Adam Bighill is a big name, and he wanted to stay in Winnipeg, so he signed. So I think this CBA thing and uncertainty may be a little bit overblown sometimes.
To a point, I think guys like Mike Riley and Bo are going to be looking for significant pay raises, and they want to see what they can get once the CBA gets signed and the cap gets set. And they're going to try to make as much money as possible, because they know once the CBA gets ratified, that they will have a job, like they will find work. And I'm not saying Adam Bighill wouldn't have, but I just think. There's going to be one or two guys that it's just because the CBA isn't signed and they're just waiting to see what they're going to get for numbers. But like you said, if a guy wants to stay, then he's probably just going to bite the bullet and take the money that he's offered.
The Eskimos end up releasing veteran safety Neil King, and J.C. Sherritt retires as an Edmonton Eskimo. And he was the leader on that defense for the past 5 or 6 years, including the year, was it 2012? When J.C. Sherritt set the all-time CFL tackle single-season record, until a guy by the name of Solomon Elimimian kind of took it from him not long after that. But, yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it was 2012. He had himself 122 tackles, and he has over 500 tackles as an Edmonton Eskimo. It's unfortunate he had to miss. Was it 2017 when he ended up tearing his Achilles? But he came back and had 100 tackles last year. Definitely a leader on that team.
And we saw when he was out that this defense struggled, in almost every aspect. He is such a leader at that linebacker position, and just a consummate professional. This is now not. It's not going to be good for the Eskimos defense. It doesn't matter what team it is. When you have a guy like J.C. Sherritt retire, you got a big hole to fill. I just hope that they can find somebody to fill that hole, whether it's internal or in the free agent market, where they can avoid what happened in 2017 when he was out with injury, because it was not pretty.
How tall are you, Tyrell?
5'8" when I wake up.
Oh, he's 5'9", and look what he made happen.
Yeah, I'm 5'8", 210. Like, I am not an ounce of muscle on me.
He's 218 at 5'9".
Yeah, and he's got quads the size of my frickin' midsection.
The man, the myth, the beard, Hugh O'Neill signs through 2020 with the Eskimos. And speaking of big name impact players, Calgary Stampeders were able to lock up Kamar Jordan for 2 years. Hopefully his recovery is going well, because he was having the year of a lifetime last year before he ended up getting hurt.
Yeah. It does not hurt that he, was arguably maybe Bo's favorite target most of the time. In 10 games, he had 944 yards and 6 touchdowns.
That's a good year.
Yeah, averaging almost 100 yards a game and, just under a touchdown a game. He probably would have ended up, I'm guessing, 1,600 and 10 touchdowns. He would have had an Eric Rodgers year from 2015.
Well, and he was just getting better, because in Week 8 he had 185 yards. The next week against Saskatchewan, he had 66 and a touchdown. And then against Winnipeg, 249.
Come on.
249 yards in a single game. I hope he's ready to go, and I hope he'll be able to play for the Stampeders all 18 games in 2019. So that takes us to where we are now. There are a lot of free agents up for grabs still, and that opens February 12th. We've mentioned, I guess, the big 3 quarterbacks in Bo, Riley, and Harris, but there are some defensive free agents that are going to get paid. Micah Johnson, Willie Jefferson, Delvin Breaux are all free agents, and let's just say Brandon Banks is one, Jagarrett Davis, Darrell Walker. There are a lot of players that are free agents. Now, I'm going to expect that 3/4, if not more of them, are going to re-sign before free agency opens next month, but it could be the craziest free agency period we have seen ever.
And you got guys like Kwaku Boateng, who are an absolute ratio buster. Brian Burnham, who arguably makes some of the craziest catches in the league. Greg Ellingson. These guys are all, these are household names when it comes to CFL. And for them not to be signed, I don't know if it has much to do with the CBA, like everybody's talking about, but at the same time, it could just be working out deals. They have till the 12th before they become free agents. Maybe some of these guys have decided to go to free agency. I don't think guys like Greg Ellingson and the other free agents that are on a team like Ottawa and Calgary, just as the 2 teams that were in the Grey Cup and they seem to be perennial contenders, I don't know if you'd really want to walk away from that. So you might see a flurry of signings there, and then, if the number's right, they're going to take it, and if they're happy with where they are, they're going to take it. The CBA be damned, really. If you can guarantee yourself a job once that CBA is finalized, it's just one less thing you have to worry about.
I guess about a week ago, Brock Sunderland flew to Seattle to meet with Mike Riley, so I know the Eskimos are trying to pull out all the stops there. Mm-hmm. And the Riders ended up losing another player to the NFL as Jordan Williams-Lambert, their Rookie of the Year nominee, signs with the Chicago Bears. Let's go through some of the coaching changes that have gone down. The Alouettes have named their defensive coordinator, a guy by the name of Bob Slowick. He ended up working with Mr. Mike Sherman while they were in Green Bay. So, Sherman gets to bring one of his buddies there, and we'll see how that goes.
Slowly turning into the Oilers Old Boys Club.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
I woke up to the greatest news this morning that Chiarelli was fired, and I was like, oh, today is not going to be a bad day.
And then they announced Keith Gretzky as the interim GM.
Wow, he was already the assistant GM, but apparently they fired him in the second intermission, which is even more Oilers than anything that Montreal could possibly do.
Oh, really? It happened in the second intermission?
Yeah, they wanted to give him a chance to, leave Rogers Centre in the way he wanted to and not have to deal with any of the fans or anything. And I guess in the third period they were chanting "Fire Chiarelli." Little did they know it was already done.
Wow. Okay, let's go to Hamilton. They have named their...
So I don't know if I can call the Alouettes a dumpster fire anymore.
Yeah, the Alouettes are in the same conversation as the Edmonton Oilers. Well, apparently, though, it's their fourth best season in the past 13 years. What does that say?
Don't. I read that today, and I just both threw my phone out the window.
The Alouettes, or the Tiger Cats, sorry, they end up naming their coaching staff for the upcoming year. A lot we did know are with Steinauer and June Jones, but Mark Washington is their D coordinator and DB coach. Tommy Condell is on the staff as a wide receivers coach, so that is big. And I think you and I both love him. Jeff Reinbold back in Hamilton as a special teams coordinator. That's when Brandon Banks had his big years as a returner, and he's kind of... I think he does okay on the offensive side now, but Reinbold back in the hammer, and it's good to see him still in the CFL.
Well, they had to get somebody to replace Glanville's presence, and Reinbold is the prime candidate to do that. Like, just his presence on the sideline alone. Nobody measures up to Jerry Glanville. Like, let's not get ridiculous here, but Reinbold brings a little bit of swagger to that coaching staff for sure now.
As we keep rolling along, this podcast is brought to you by Park Power. I love everything about these guys. They're a provider of electricity and natural gas in Alberta that offers low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose where you buy your energy from. So if you choose Park Power, the money stays in the province, and it's really cool here because they donate a part of their profits to not-for-profits. So you're kind of, what is the word? Feeding two birds with one scone there?
Oh, my God.
Because you're supporting a local company, and they're supporting charities with that money as well. So shopping local is a great thing to do, and you can make the switch today to Park Power by visiting parkpower.ca. That is parkpower.ca. As we move along, BC Lions offensive line coach is looking to join the Toronto Argonauts. Dan D'Orazio is in BC for a long, long time, but a lot of changes happening in Vancouver with Wally Buono stepping away.
Yeah, and, it's tough when, a guy like Wally Buono is the boss for so long, and probably, you get into a rhythm and he's easy to work with, and all of a sudden he's gone, and you start looking around, it's like, there might be better options somewhere else. Ed Hervey kind of rebuilt that offensive line through a draft and an off-season, and, it wasn't the best offensive line we've ever seen, but it was night and day compared to what they had a year ago. And Dan D'Orazio obviously has something to do with that. So, it's a pretty decent looking resume. If you're going to bring in a new head coach, not saying Devon Claybrooks would have fired him, but, for the most part, head coaches want their own staff, and maybe, D'Orazio just kind of sees that he's not a fit or just sees an opportunity somewhere else. It could be any one of those things, but, that the coach's cap, though, is going to make it very interesting what his options are.
And we go back to the Riders. They named Jeremy O'Day as their general manager, but they remain the only team in the Canadian Football League without a coach right now. Apparently, the Riders were denied permission to speak to Paul LaPolice and Jamie Elizondo. Of course, Lapo, the OC in Winnipeg, and Jamie Elizondo in Ottawa. The Bombers say their excuse is that it's too late in the year when... But that's a load of crap, and you and I both know it, because Lapo went to Winnipeg as the head coach in the same situation, but it happened in February. So it's...
We also know the rules.
Exactly. It's not too late in the year. The Bombers are well within their rights to deny Lapo permission to talk to the Riders, and I get why they did it, but...
Why are you going to let your OC walk and go to your biggest rival inside your own division?
But how is that treating your employee, though?
It's about winning football games, man.
But how does Lapo feel? What kind of loyalty does he have after that?
Oh, I guarantee you he's pissed. I would be too, but if I'm Kyle Walters, I'm like, man, you're signed here. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. They're not. I don't. It's just there'd be no way that I would be letting Paul LaPolice talk to the Riders. I know that you have to the end of the month and all this stuff, but you still have to get permission. He's under contract. Team doesn't want to give permission. They don't want. That's completely their right. I do disagree with. If it was a lateral move, I agree. As a promotion, though, I think, like you see it in baseball, if you hire a guy away, it has to be a promotion, and then you just have to pay a little bit of compensation, whether that be a player or cash. So I would like to see that kind of filter its way in to where guys who have an opportunity to get a promotion, even if it's in another franchise, should still get that chance. It kind of sucks that way, but as far as I'm concerned, Winnipeg's completely in their right to do what they did, and they're in the business of winning football games. They're not in the business of helping out a rival team build a coaching staff.
And they did kind of get screwed with the whole Darian Durant situation.
Yeah, maybe this is payback for that.
Even indirectly, because Durant had nothing to do with the Riders at that time. But Winnipeg was almost a different situation, because at times when they were struggling, people would call for O'Shea to get fired and LaPolice to step into that head coaching role. So in a weird way, it's almost like Lapo and O'Shea are almost equals on that staff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I just think people look at, there's the coach is always the first one, right? That's going to be that's your GM's first move, and people are familiar with Paul LaPolice, in this league, and it's an easy fix in their eyes. But I think they've both been around this league and this game so much that they are equals in a sense that they've both been long tenured and stuff like that. But one's a head coach and one's an OC. Technically O'Shea is LaPolice's boss.
Yeah.
So I mean they're not quite equal, but people see their ability to coach as equal for sure.
Jerry Glanville said he'd be interested in the job in Saskatchewan. But
please, just for 1 year, how good would it be?
The drama would. When does the drama stop? Like I enjoy it, but
do you really think Glanville would put up with any from the players?
Oh man, he said, what was his quote? He said something like, "Yeah, Chris Jones wears a lot of hats, but I've never seen him wear a cowboy hat."
Like, I don't care if they would go 1-17. It'd be worth just having Glanville on the sidelines for a year.
Wow. Where it is, the Riders did interview Craig Dickinson for the job, as well as Stephen McAdoo for the job.
Ugh.
They're kind of in a weird spot right now because of the coach's cap, because it's not only to do with money, it's the number of positions. They have 10 coaches right now. You're allowed to have 11.
And if you ask Arash Madani, all those coaches are signed for 2 more years.
Yeah, so if they fire one, they got to pay him out, right?
Well, yeah, but all the coaches only signed 1-year extensions, so I don't know who was feeding Arash stories, but he was wrong, as per usual, when it comes to him covering the CFL.
Am I supposed to leave it on that note?
Might as well. I don't see why we wouldn't.
Okay, place down your chips. Who you betting on to be the new coach of the Riders? Because Mike Benavidez is also in the mix. People are calling for
Mark Trestman.
And I think that one is probably a 1 in 100 chance. I don't see that one happening.
He doesn't have a quarterback to work. He doesn't have a franchise quarterback to work with. So why? Well, there's no way he takes.
Well, I mean,
the job.
Drew Willie's available, like I said.
Okay, we can end it on that.
I think it's Dickinson or Benavides.
I think those are the two easy choices that I don't know, like, especially this late now, everybody's kind of getting their staffs together, and, you know, you're only going to be able to fill this role internally or find guys that don't have jobs yet. So obviously teams, if Ottawa and Winnipeg haven't let you talk to their OCs, the other teams are going to be like, well, no, they didn't. We're not going to either. So they're going to have to figure this out. I think Craig Dickinson would be the clubhouse leader, we'll call it, just because it's an internal, and they know who he is. They know what he's about. Not saying they don't know about Mike Benavides, but you know, it's easier to promote from within when you have the chance.
Yeah, if you look at the Rough Riders staff that they did announce earlier before Mr. Jones ended up going to the NFL. There are guys that have been on his staff. Maybe a guy like Jason Shivers, who has been coaching the Rider defensive backs for 4 years, knows the Jones system, moves up to coach the defense, while Dickinson goes to I don't know, can you do special teams and head coaching? You probably can. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do heading into 2019.
Didn't O'Shea do that?
Like right now?
No, not right now.
Oh, yeah. They got, I just typed it in. They got Paul Boudreau is their special teams coordinator right now. I don't know if he's done it before. He probably could have. And I know he does have input in it right now. He's a special teams genius.
2010 to 2013, he was with the Argos special teams, and he's only been the head coach in Winnipeg. But, he would be my first bet as to who could do it.
Yeah, that's totally true. Well, the Riders, we'll see if they make a decision before free agency. I hope it happens before free agency. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
It would sure help.
Yeah, it's Travis Currah and Brazilian Ty. And we're part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. Make sure you check out Press Start to Join. Josh and Alan talk video games, movies, TV, comics, Star Wars, and everything in between. If they added wrestling in there...
So basically everything that's awesome.
Yes, if they added wrestling in there, and maybe they do. Maybe wrestling is and such.
Oh...
But they talk...
What about wrestling video games?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, what was your favorite wrestling video game of all time?
Oh, probably No Mercy.
Yeah, it's tough
on the N64.
It's tough for it not to be No Mercy.
Yeah, Nitro was good, but WWF, I just can't get away from the brand.
Yeah, I'm too loyal. I remember fighting backstage and all that stuff. It was good. So press start to join with Josh and Alan. Check that out. And actually just go to albertapodcastnetwork.com. They got a brand new site. Everything's organized all pretty and stuff. So check that out, the new website for the Alberta Podcast Network. Give us a rating, a review, a subscription on iTunes or wherever you listen to Two and Out. And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.